האח שלך.
So Israel has decided to preemptively attack Iran. Israel launched a surprise attack on Iran while Iran and the US were still negotiating on Iran's nuclear deal. So the initial targets were the Iranian top leadership and nuclear scientists, airstrikes on nuclear and defense facilities, and destruction of Iran's air defenses. And later the United States decided to join with Israel's forces and drop B-2 bombers, after which Trump later called for a ceasefire between both the countries. Now the Israeli attack killed over several military leaders of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, the IRGC's, top nuclear scientists, and more than 200 Iranian civilians. Airstrike damaged the Natanz nuclear facilities and the Isfahan uranium conversion facilities, but apparently left the Fordow fuel enrichment plant unscathed. Now Iran retaliated by attacking Israel's defense department and attacked Israel's cities. Israel has weakened Iran's proxies in the region, Hezbollah and Hamas, and began planning to attack Iran. We need to understand this. These attacks occurred while Iran and the United States were still negotiating on Iran's nuclear program, and reports suggest that Trump gave the green light to Netanyahu to attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. Now in 2015, Iran did sign the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, under Barack Obama. United Nations Security Council and Germany and Russia and the rest of the Western European countries, under which it limited Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sanctions. In 2018, President Donald Trump, during his first presidency, pulled out of the JCPOA and put the sanctions back on Iran, even though the Iranians were complying with the JCPOA. And then Iran retaliated by increasing its uranium enrichment. Following the assassination of Qasem Soleimani in 2020, Iran said it would no longer abide with the JCPOA restrictions. By 2021, Iran was enriching by 60% purity, similar to weapons-grade uranium. In March of 2025, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard testified to the US intelligence community continues to assess Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized a nuclear weapons program.
Iran's cyber operations and capabilities also present a serious threat to US networks and data. The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. The IC continues to monitor closely if Tehran decides to reauthorize its nuclear weapons program. In the past year, we've seen an erosion of a decades-long taboo in Iran on discussing nuclear weapons in public, likely emboldening nuclear weapons advocates within Iran's decision-making apparatus. Iran's enriched uranium stockpile is at its highest levels and is unprecedented for a state without nuclear weapons.
In May of 2025, the IAEA report suggested that Iran has amassed 60% uranium, higher than required for its civilian uses and close to a military grade. In response, Iran announced a third nuclear facility that would put under the IAEA monitoring. The United States Central Intelligence Command, CENTCOM, suggested that Iran could produce weapons-grade uranium in a week. However, estimates require to make an actual weapon vary from 7 to 12 months. A day before the Israeli attack, the IAEA found Iran non-compliant with its nuclear obligation for the first time in 20 years. Iran insists it does not seek to build a nuclear weapon, and the Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei delivered a fatwa saying a nuclear weapon is unethical. The IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi said in an interview with CNN in June 2025 that the IAEA did not have a proof of a systematic effort to move into a nuclear weapon. According to Reuters, Trump knew of Israel's plan to attack Iran, in which he states, "We knew everything, and I tried to save Iran's humiliation and death. I tried to save them very hard because I would have loved to see a deal worked out." And then he further later added on, "They can still work out a deal. However, it's not too late." Now, when Israel decided to launch an attack on Iran, Netanyahu announced the launch of Operation Rising Lion, which targeted Iran's main enrichment facility in Natanz, its nuclear scientists, and part of its ballistic missile program. Netanyahu described Iran's nuclear effort as a part of a clear and present danger to Israel's very survival, and emphasized that in acting, we also defend our Arab neighbors from Iranian aggression. He said the operation would continue for as many days it takes. In a speech announcing the attack, Netanyahu said, "For decades, the leader of Tehran have openly called for Israel's destruction. They have backed up the genocidal rhetoric with their nuclear weapons program." Netanyahu said Israel attacked because, if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. Following the attack, Netanyahu said Israel's war was against Iran's government and not its people. Netanyahu convened the Security Cabinet as the situation unfolded. We need to understand this. Netanyahu has been saying this for the past 30 years, that Iran is close to developing a nuclear weapon and that they are about to launch it any second.
The deadline for attaining this goal is getting extremely close. And Iran, by the way, is also outpacing Iraq in the development of ballistic missile systems that they hope will reach the eastern seaboard of the United States within 15 years. By next spring, at most, by next summer, at current enrichment rates, they will have finished the medium enrichment and move on to the final stage. From there, it's only a few months, possibly a few weeks, before they get enough enriched uranium for the first bomb. The foremost sponsor of global terrorism could be weeks away from having enough enriched uranium for an entire arsenal of nuclear weapons. That would place a militant Islamic terror regime weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months.
Even the US intelligence has confirmed that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon and is not in pursuit of a nuclear weapon. What Netanyahu and the political establishment in DC want is a regime change in Iran. And he also stated that in an interview he gave with Fox News with Bret Baier, in which he wanted a regime change. What Israel wants is, it wants a supreme leader gone and a regime change in Iran. It's nothing to do with Iran's nuclear program. What Israel seeks is to be the hegemon of the region, and the only country in its way is Iran. Most of the Arab countries aligned with Israel and recognize Israel's sovereignty. Now, the Israeli forces had issued an evacuation order to the residents of Tehran, warning them of imminent bombing attacks on its military infrastructure. And then later Israel attacked the Iranian state TV during a live transmission that it was under attack. So while Israel was attacking Iran's top military scientists, Iran's military infrastructure, taking out the top leadership in the IRGCs, Iran retaliated by attacking Israel's defense department and launching missiles at Israel's cities. The reaction from the White House and the Trump administration at the time was that the United States had nothing to do with Israel's attack and that Iran should not attack any US air bases in the region. Trump gave an interview to Reuters after Israel started the initial attacks on Iran. He commented by saying that the US knew all along about the attack. You see, before all of this, Israel wanted to attack Iran's nuclear facilities and wanted a regime change during Trump's initial months of his presidency, but Trump urged Netanyahu to wait until he negotiated with the Iranians. But what the Trump administration was asking from the Iranians was next to impossible. No enrichment. Iran could not enrich any uranium, and a total dismantle of its nuclear facilities. But Iran does not want what happened to Saddam Hussein in Iraq and Gaddafi in Libya. So they want to have some capability of enriching uranium for its medical uses and civilian purposes. But you have the Trump administration that is constantly telling the Iranians that it can have no enrichment. Now, Trump was also asked if this could turn into a regional war. He commented by saying, "We've been a very close friend to Israel. We're the #1 ally by far." And then Trump added later on, "We'll see what happens." The United States knows that after the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan, where close onto millions of civilian deaths occurred and trillions spent on both these countries, and the invasion of Iraq basically handed Iraq to Iran, and the invasion of Afghanistan led to the establishment of the Taliban taking over. Now you have Trump who does not want to repeat that. That's why Trump only ordered to take out the nuclear facilities and not to take out the regime. While you have Netanyahu and the political establishment that want Trump to go hard on the regime and take them out. And that will require the United States putting ground troops in Iran and taking over the country, which has a population of over 90 million. Iran is 4 times the size of Iraq and Afghanistan. Invading Iran is a nightmare. Invading Iran by land, almost impossible. And here's why. To the west, the Zagros mountain. a rocky wall with narrow passes, easy to defend, hard to attack. To the north, the Elbrus mountain, rising like a shield beside the Caspian Sea. To the east, more rugged mountains near Afghanistan and Pakistan, still no easy entry. And in the middle, two deadly deserts, Dasht-e-Kawar and Dasht-e-Lut, scorching heat, salt flats, sand that swallows tank. Mountains, desert, bottlenecks. Iran is a natural fortress, and that's why invading Iran by land is a military nightmare. Now, according to The Guardian, Pentagon says US strikes set back Iran's nuclear program to 1 to 2 years. Now, in the report, it suggested that US dropping the B-2 bombers has set the Iranian nuclear program back to 1 to 2 years now. The Pentagon has collected intelligence material that suggests Iran's nuclear program was set back roughly 1 to 2 years as a result of the US airstrikes on 3 key facilities last month. Donald Trump's claim that Iran's key nuclear facilities has completely destroyed, although he did not offer further details. We have degraded their program by 1 to 2 years. At least Intel assessment inside the department assesses that. The head of the UN nuclear watchdog said on Sunday that Iran could be producing enriched uranium in few months. They can have it in a matter of months, I would say. A few cascades of centrifuges spinning and producing enriched uranium. Netanyahu speaks of regime change in Iran. What he means is regime destruction. In an interview with Fox News on Sunday, Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, pontified on a theme that he has become increasingly attached to in recent years, that Israel under his leadership would not simply attempt to dismantle Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile program through military attack, but in the process usher in regime change in Tehran. The government in Tehran, he said, was very weak, adding that given the opportunity, 80% of the people would throw these theological thugs out. The list of targets in Iran hit in the last 2 days appear to confirm that Israel may be pursuing a broader agenda than simply destroying Tehran's nuclear program, striking police headquarters, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Intelligence Directorate, and state television broadcaster while it was live on air. Now, after Trump dropped the B-2 bombers in Iran's nuclear facilities, Trump called for a ceasefire between Israel and Iran and named the war as the 12-day war, and called peace for both the countries. But Israel breached the ceasefire and attacked Iran's nuclear facilities and attacked Iranian top military officers, which angered Trump.